Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. This podcast covers the national champions. Got a great show for you today, coming to you a little bit early. Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter are back. Had a few days extra off because Dave covered me last Thursday. Had on Steve Hellwagon. Got a great show for you today. Like I said, recapping much of the spring game again. We're going to hear what Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter thought of the game, their impressions after getting to see everyone in pads running around. And we've also got Bill's extensive report on all the recruiting information. Almost too much to go into here for me off the top. Lots of guys were in town. Recruits, commitments, future commitments, etc. New offers have gone out both in and out of state. We will try and get it to as much of that as we can. But first, so much stuff going on, so much activity. You know what you need? Mando whole body deodorant for men, safe to use anywhere on your body. Pits, folds, buttons, cracks, feets, all that stuff. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was misdiagnosed and mistreated. Clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. These are baking soda free, paraben free. Like I said, proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's odor level was a 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average odor level is a 0 out of 10. You can find Mando in Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country, so you know they're legit. But even better than that, we've got something for you here. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, kind of whichever strikes your fancy there, and then 2 free products of your choice. Get you a mini body wash, get you deodorant wipes, and free shipping. So as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. And the code is easy to remember. Bucknuts at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. And your code, again, is Bucknuts. All right. No code needed for these guys. Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter have had a few extra days off, as I said, because we are going through the extended grad student recruiting process for my son and visiting all over. Visited a school this past weekend, and guess what I found out yesterday? The head coach left. So it's an adventure. It's Cruton. However, Ohio State is very good at both. The number of recruits, Bill, like I said, that were here this weekend, they needed more than a red carpet. They need like a red tarp. But let's go over, Bill, first, your thoughts on the spring game. Those who are watching the show now can see on the front that I got a picture of Tavian St. Clair there. First time we kind of actually saw him get to run around. So just your thoughts on the spring game. You were on What We Learned live immediately after the game. Now that you had a chance to think about it and maybe watch some more of it, your thoughts on what you saw coming off the Natty.
Well, as I said on What We Learned, when the spring game gets around, sometimes I come around or come away from the game thinking, spring game, they don't tackle for the most part, and it's not exactly real football. So I'm not overly excited about it. But this year is a little bit different because there were so many new guys. Ohio State lost a lot off of that national championship team, obviously. And as Ryan Day said, there's not really a lack of talent at Ohio State now that they lost all those guys. There's a lack of experience. So I was kind of particularly more excited about this game than sometimes in the past. And also because, I do the recruiting and I really expected some young guys to get to see them for the first time. And I did. You mentioned one of them, Tavian St. Clair, Devin Sanchez, of course. So I thought it was more interesting, perhaps, than sometimes in the past. And of course, there's the quarterback battle. I really thought that everybody was talking about Julian saying coming out of the game, but I thought Lincoln Keenholz, held his own too. I thought that was interesting, and I thought Tavian St. Clair, as the game went on and his opportunities got more, he looked better and better. My one other thought was that the line play. I watched the offensive line, and a year ago, the defensive line impressed me. This year, I thought the offensive line kind of pushed the defensive line around a little bit. Now, is that because the offensive line is so good this year, or the defensive line is not so good? I think it's a little bit of combination of both. I think the offensive line, I was impressed by them. I think they filled their holes pretty well. Ethan Anianwa, for instance, and Austin Siervelt moving to right tackle. I thought they looked pretty good. Defensive line, I think there's a little bit of a depth issue there at defensive tackle, and I put a transfer portal tracker on the site first thing this morning. And one thing Ryan Day said is we're going to have to look at that in the portal. So that was one of my biggest takes. I think it was kind of a combination of both. The offensive line is pretty good, and the defensive line can maybe use a little help.
Marcus, I'm going to bring up the video. You can start it whenever you want, based on what you say. Your thoughts on the spring game you've not been heard from yet.
Yeah. First of all, when I was breaking it down, I remember 2 seasons ago when Brian Hartline was the offensive coordinator the first time, that we got the most vanilla spring game we've ever seen. It was really zone left, zone right, couple base pass concepts, and let's get everyone healthy and get out of here and not show anything. I think Brian Hartline, I don't want to say he opened up the playbook, but there was a little more diversity in the passing concepts. That little, if you remember, Jeremiah Smith caught what was called a slide route in that game where he was wide open and ran for the touchdown early in the game. And it was like, wow, how did they get him motioning out of the backfield? And it was like this great, wizardry by Chip Kelly. I think they ran that twice in the spring game. So they didn't hold that back and save it for, week 8 versus whoever. So that was nice to see. It gave the players more of a chance to make plays. And I remember breaking that film down from 2 years ago, Dan, and you'll probably remember this when I say it. But remember, it was all hitches and all slants and all catches under 5 yards. It was really a repetitive thing that just this was not like that. We saw deep crossers. So hats off to Brian Hartline for opening it up a little bit. The other thing we saw is on defense, it was base cover two zone. It really wasn't, there was a cover 3 in there, some man-to-man, but it wasn't the full package. So I was trying to get like a little insight to who's Matt Patricia. What's he going to be like? Is he going to run the 3 safeties? I saw an interview where he may be running the 3 safety look, and, I didn't see a bunch of that. So maybe he's not showing that right now. Or personnel. I like seeing Sonny Styles at middle linebacker. That was a little different. The quarterback battle between Sayan and Keenholz, I hope they both played well enough where the Nico Iamaleava rumors that has Ohio State.
No, don't worry about that.
Yeah, is more of a fairy tale than anything. I think these guys probably solidified, what they needed to do. And again, base concepts, but you should be able to master the base concepts. So we'll get into some of the plays here and see kind of what transpired and break down a couple of the bigger plays of the game. Right here, you have your cover 2 or cover 4 shell, very standard for Ohio State on defense, not trying to fool anybody. Play action, simple is going to bring these linebackers up, and much like an RPO, once
this run game in Ohio State is soft.
Get rid of the volume there for you. Okay. So you're just running a simple out by the tight end and then a clear out here. And once that area clears out there, is there anybody near Jelini Thurman here? Is this a hard completion? But to give you an example of the base coverage and the base plays, that's about as basic as you can get. Here we have a nice job of double teaming up to the linebacker. The center, Josh Padilla, does a great job of kicking out, and you're going to bring the H back through to lead up for another kick out block. But this is your simple counter tray type play with the double team. Stuff we'd seen in the past. It's nothing new and no new changes out of the offensive coordinator scheme-wise. But, boy, does this hit clear. And C.J. Donaldson, did anybody think he looked a little faster than advertised, before this game, where I had envisioned more of a power back, but he, seems like he can run a little bit. Here you have the inside hitch. which that's going to hold this flat defender right here. And then that's going to create a one-on-one with Aaron Scott. I know we were excited to see Aaron Scott, Bryce West, Devin Sanchez, but here's a good look at simply a 50-50 ball. And then, the play action again holds the safety, brings the linebackers up to ensure you're one-on-one. And Aaron Scott does a great job of locking it down, so to speak, putting him on an island. And can he handle that? Here we have another clear out route on the outside. And it's a very simple concept where you're going to run someone the flats and then the backside over route or a crosser. We see this all the time out of Ohio State. They use play action to buy time. And as you can see, there's that area that's opening up, this dead area that's going to be right in here. And again, another great throw. I mean, these balls are perfect spirals on the line. The quarterbacks really did do some pretty passing in this game. 4 verticals, even though it's out of trips. You don't always see this out of trips. You're trying to split the middle of these safeties here. And another good job of getting down the seam. And you see the safeties widen. Another ball right on time, on the money. The quarterbacks look sharp. This is an individual effort by Sonny Styles. The double team doesn't get to him, and there's your tackle for loss. That might be your safety speed at linebacker, surprising some people. Cover 2 here, and it's man-to-man cover 2. So you're going to take your best one-on-one, which I highlighted at the bottom of the screen here, and you can almost lock onto this. And as soon as he wins inside here, and he doesn't win by much. I mean, that window on that ball was 6-8 inches. I mean, I thought that was the best ball of the day. I mean, that coverage was inside technique, trail position to the inside. You throw that 6 inches behind him, and that's going the other way. Conversely,
Mark,
the last cover
you can make the argument. You can make the argument he was covered on that play.
Yeah, he was. In most high school, college games, that is considered coverage. In the NFL, that might be considered a Brett Favre or an Aaron Rodgers zip it into a window throw. So that's like I said, that was a heck of a throw. Cover 2 zone here is, say we saw cover 2 man the last play, cover 2 zone. What you do against cover 2 zone, you're going to try to get down the middle, and you're going to see we have 3 verticals here. We're going to occupy the outside corners. The tight end here is going to try to widen this guy, give him a little head fake, and then boom to the inside and over behind this linebacker with this great protection. Bill brought up the protection. He talked about the offensive line. We had the least sacked quarterback in the NCAA last year, and that just continued into this spring game where it didn't look like the quarterbacks were harassed very much. You saw that safety just roll down from cover 2. He's now a flat defender, okay? Was the quarterback ready for this? Because all the flat defender is going to do is what? Pop out to the flat at the snap of the ball. And if you're running a hitch out there, I would hope that you're aware that this guy could get underneath this route. And this is football 101. I mean, base cover 3. Let's go out underneath the flat right there. And yikes, quarterback. That's one you're going to learn from on film when they roll from cover 2 to cover 3. That, number 10 is going to be standing right where you're throwing the hitch. Dan usually shuts this off about now. I don't know how much he wants to give away here, but we're not going to give away. It's fun to start watching those plays and talking about the guys. And Max Clare, he can run a little bit. There were little things throughout that game. Bo Jackson had a run that was like, welcome to college football. I can break tackles, and I ran through 3 or 4 guys on one play. And if you're Sam Williams-Dixon, now I know why you tested your waters in the transfer portal, because this kid's going to be, trying to get up that depth chart pretty fast just based on one run. It's only one, but it's a heck of an introduction to Buckeye Nation. I could probably talk more about different players as you guys hit on names. Maybe it'll spur more thoughts.
No, the talent's not going to be an issue. That's what it's never an issue. But we'll discuss the one spot that everyone's discussing here in just a sec. But in terms of just guys flashing and young guys looking good and stuff like that, it really did check all the boxes. I would like to hear what each of you thought of Tavian St. Clair. Bill?
First of all, I had a text from someone that has seen Tavian St. Clair in person for the first time. And he said, he's huge. He's a monster. And I said, yep, he's a big guy. 6'4" to 6'5", and 220 to 225 in that range. He is a big guy. And especially Julian Sain's not the biggest guy. You stand those two next together, and he is a big guy. He can throw it. And he had the opening that you might expect. Your first time in a college football game, and you throw would be almost a pick six. But he got better. And I will stay with what I have said for a long time. He is going to be a very good quarterback at Ohio State when his time comes. I don't think his time is here yet. Ryan Day has said it's clearly a top 2 right now. And it's kind of interesting. I see comments about, well, Sayan's got the job wrapped up, and comments about it's pretty wide open. And all I can tell you is after watching that spring game, I feel pretty good about as long as Sayan and Keenholz are both at Ohio State next season, and I think they will be. As long as they're both at Ohio State, I think Ohio State's in pretty decent shape at quarterback. Whoever wins the job, and I still think it's probably Sayan with the edge, but we'll see. But whoever wins the job, the other guy's one play away from being the starter, and I'd be pretty comfortable with that too.
I've said it like this, that I think I'm more confident in Lincoln Keenholz than I was in Devin Brown at this point last year. A little less confident in Julian Sayan than I was in Will Howard, if that makes any sense. So you're kind of like in between there, and neither one has really ever been the guy. As far as St. Clair goes, people have to grasp that he did not play. I mean, he's played all the 7-on-7s and traveled around, but his high school football in terms of his day-to-day just wasn't what some other guys go through. He went to Bellefontaine. Just to let you know, we played Bellefontaine in the basketball playoffs, and we won, and we are Oakwood. So if that's the case, he didn't go to a big school, even though my son killed him. But I digress. Marcus, your feelings on Tavian St. Clair? Just basic stuff. Did you see what you wanted to see?
Well, I think everybody got the basics of what happened with him, but the arm talent is what I mean, that's what you bought when you bought him, that 230-pound frame, and when he uncorks it, he can uncork it. Now, he'll have to learn not to lock on to guys and not to, in pre-snap, jump on stuff without actually reading it. And Bill said it, that's what you kind of expect for any freshman quarterback that comes, right into college football, and the speed of the game's there, and, in front of the shoe. So no worries. I wouldn't put any, in the first half, 1 for 8 with 1 interception. The announcers were like, welcome to college football. But in the second half, and this is maybe more important than anything, is Brian Hartline knew how to get that kid comfortable in the second half and get the reins back on him. There's a lot to be said for any quarterback that goes out and struggles, who has a coordinator that can say, you know what, I got some high completion stuff for you, kid. What do you want to do? Let's get you comfortable. Let's get your feet back underneath you, and let's get you, kind of being who we think you can be. Because if that 1 for 8 would have continued, now you're looking at, okay, is there something the matter with the kid? What kind of plays are being called, or what kind of position are they put him in? So I think hats off the coordinator and player for, getting together at halftime and saying, hey, I'm throwing you back into the fire again. Okay. And we're going to right this ship, so you don't walk out of this stadium today thinking that, the world's on fire, because you know what, that's a long couple months if he walks out of there 1 for 8 with an interception and they go with the backups in the second half. I think when you talk about quarterback confidence, I think Coach Hartline did good to keep that quarterback's confidence where it should be. And I'm sure after the second half, everyone came up to him and said, hey, you can play in this league. You got this, kid. And I think that goes a long way. So the future will be Tavian St. Clair someday, and he is going to be a stud here. Right now, it looks like Sayan and Keenholz definitely have a little more command, which, hey, that's big. I know a quarterback in my family where when he goes from anticipating, instead of reacting, a lot of times when you're young, you're kind of reacting out there and you're not anticipating. Like if he anticipated that flat defender to do that, he wouldn't have thrown it. But, you react to it too late, and it's ball game for you. So,
well, he's going up against decent defense during practice. You guys mentioned it, though. I wanted to make this clear and then address one of the comments here. He passes the look test with 4.0 look test. He's so much bigger than the other two guys. You can see, if you take into account the age, I mean, he's a pup. He's going to look like I don't even know what he's going to look like in 3 years. I mean, seriously, he's going to be like what? A more athletic Josh Allen. I mean, I hate to go off.
Yeah.
That's so hyperbolic, but as a 17 or 18-year-old, even if he's 19 right now, he's a monster, man.
And the Cam Newton, Dante Culpepper lower body, with that much weight, the 250, the 240, poof, that really, when you turn on a ball, you're going to break receivers' fingers.
He may weigh that much. He moves better than Dante Culpepper in terms of like Culpepper was almost muscle bound. He was like legitimately like a tight end. Cam Newton moved around beautifully, but he was huge. I think Sayan's going to look more like a bulked up power forward, a little bit bigger than, I mean, he moves beautifully. Boy, he's so much bigger than the other two guys. It really jumps out. Usually you think that's the older guy. And when it's the younger guy, you got to get a second take it. What are you going to say, Mark?
And Julian Sayan's up over 200 pounds. If you noticed him, he looked a little more cut up in the arms. And, it may be weird, but he's giving you a little Baker Mayfield vibe where, that Baker's that like 6'1", 220 or 215 where he's just stacked in there. And that's where these guys generate all their throwing power from in their core, that, base of that, beef they have on them.
Yeah, I know that people are – there's one comment here that I think it's in response to what I said about – Sayan and Keenholz. That's not a talent issue. I'm not here saying I think that Will Howard is a more talented player than Julian Sayan. What I'm saying is, because Dan said this is only second year for Sayan, give the kid a chance. Comparing Sayan to Howard is ridiculous. I wasn't comparing them personally. I was just saying the quarterback situation for the team is at a certain level, as different than it was last year, just based on experience. It doesn't mean the talent, doesn't mean the results. So I'm not really worried about all that. That's not what I was saying. Long-term upside, I mean, all three guys are off the charts. So embarrassment of riches. Another thing that's an embarrassment of riches is our relationship with Cornbread hemp. Bill will tell you. America's first ever USDA organic THC gummy. You need a healthy happy hour, a natural and healthier way to experience a carefree moment. Cornbread's THC gummies offer a balanced sense of happiness and relaxation. Proudly grown in Kentucky, 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, just the right dose. No harsh solvents like petrochemicals or industrial acids like most hemp THC products. No synthetic ingredients, Farm Bill compliant, and legal for adults over 21. If you're looking for a healthier way, like I said, to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread hemp a try. Many Bucknutters have, as Dave and I tell you, they would not be advertising with us on a consistent basis if you guys weren't getting your gummy on. And they've created the first ever organic THC gummy that's 100% legal. As a special offer for BM5 listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use promo code, Bucknuts at checkout. Again, Cornbread Hemp /Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a happier, healthy hour. All right, Bill. Hopefully your vocal cords are nice and lubed up here. There were so many recruits at this thing that when I sat down to make my list of guys I wanted to talk about, I kind of felt like I was just underweight and was having trouble picking out the best ones. So I'm going to ask about a guy that I'm going to start asking about all the time, and that is Tyler Atkinson. If you could start with him and then build off that, I would appreciate it greatly.
Well, Tyler did make his visit. And interestingly, he's been to Ohio State before, but he had wanted to get here for this spring game, wanted to be at a game. He came away impressed. I talked to him shortly after the visit, and he was impressed. Didn't come away with commitment, obviously, but nobody expected that to happen. The next thing for him is going to be announcing his official visits and dates and that. And he didn't say so, but I feel very confident Ohio State is going to be an official visit. I think, I saw somebody ask about who may commit or has committed. There's several guys that I came away from this weekend either already feeling or now feeling it's Ohio State and another school at the top. Which school of the two? I don't know right now. But with Tyler Atkinson, I think I feel like Ohio State and Georgia are going to be at the top at this point. Is it going to be easy to get him out of Georgia? No. But is it going to be possible? I think it is going to be possible. So just a great player that had a great visit to Ohio State. And by the way, we're going to talk about the guys at the spring game and all, but the weekend started with Felix Ojo visiting Ohio State. That was a Thursday, Friday visit, so he was not at the spring game, and that wasn't anything to worry about. It had been his plan all along. He was going to visit Ohio State Thursday and Friday, then head from Ohio State to Florida and watch their spring game on Saturday, and that's exactly what he did. But Felix Ojo, he's another guy. I think that could end up being an Ohio State-Texas battle. And again, it will not be easy getting him out of Texas, but he liked what he saw once again at Ohio State on Thursday and Friday.
Next question, Bill, and this is one so we can get Mark involved here. Let us know the recent offer to a Glenville large human. We've talked about getting a defensive tackle in the transfer portal, and the word 360 came through on a text, and I was like, what? High school defensive tackle 360? So you can let us know who he is, and Mark, you can let us know what he is.
Well, that would be Jameer Perez, and he did get an offer from Ohio State this weekend, and he was very excited about it, as most Glenville guys are. As soon as they get an offer, you put them on the watch list for Ohio State commitment-wise. But as of right now, he's not necessarily thinking he'll decide anytime soon. The 360, that was in my article because I asked him after he got the article, I said, what are you checking in at now, Jameer? And he said about 6'4", 360. So that came right from Jameer. Mark and I saw him at Ohio State's camp last June, and we both talked about this is a guy that, if he is in the proper shape and all, can be an Ohio State offer guy. And I'll let Mark talk more about that. But we discussed that at that camp. And lo and behold, he gets the offer from Ohio State on Saturday. And I think you mentioned it, Dan. The price of defensive linemen is going to be very high in the portal. First of all, there were not a lot of defensive linemen saying they were going to get in the portal. That may change now because it's, I think as our Brad Crawford might have said, supply and demand. If the supply is not there and the demand is, you may see more guys getting in that portal to take advantage of the supply and demand. So it's going to be expensive for defensive linemen. Does Ohio State have the wherewithal to do that? Sure. But are they going to break the bank for any one guy at a position and completely change their salary structure? Probably not. But they will have the ability to do that.
The concept of getting a defensive tackle in the transfer portal, and we'll get to Perez here, back to Perez in a second. Like you said, Bill, there's only so many offensive linemen that weigh 360. A defensive lineman that weigh 360. There's only so many tackles out there. There's just not enough bodies. That's what's causing this. Be very interesting to watch defensive tackle market. I do think you're going to see some guys hop in there in this second rotation for the Buckeyes to get a chance on. We will have to wait on Perez. Mark, I can't remember a defensive tackle at Glenville that was this big. Am I missing somebody?
They've had guys like this in the past, Audrey Walker and
he was an offensive
Johnson's
lineman.
brother, Freddie. I mean, this is definitely unique, but Bill is being pretty modest. This kid came from Lutheran West, and the day he transferred to Glenville, I got a call, and they talked about this kid being an absolute stud. He was a little bit this summer in flux of maybe an offensive lineman. Maybe he'd be making the switch or defensive line. He worked out Ohio State, and if you go back and listen to podcasts during that time, you'll hear us talk about him. But he is one technique. He's just going to be a space eater in the middle. He's going to be able to blow up a center just like he's doing here, push him a couple yards in the backfield, and that's the textbook play for what you want out of your nose man. Stand the guy up in front of you, wait right there, stick out one of those big paws or arms, and wrap him up and take him, down. He's not going to be a pass rusher, early down, run down guy, and serves a very specific purpose. That 360. There's something I like when players weigh that much and they finally get down to 330 or 315 or something. They're almost like better athletes at that lower weight because they've been running around carrying an extra 50-pound plate on their back for so long that when it's finally removed, the athlete underneath them comes out. So there may be a day he looks better than he does now, but he has get off for a bigger kid. I mean, he's really a load inside there. And I know you guys talking about the value of big men. In the NFL, I've made this joke. You can get a running back off the streets and he can come in and run for 100 yards, and put him on your fantasy team. There are no giant offensive tackles sitting around on couches on the street that when your guy gets hurt, I'll just call him off the couch and he'll come in and protect for us. They're not there. So these bodies are so hard to find, in whether it's offense or defense. So if you can get a big guy that's athletic, that has the underlying athletic skills, sign them up because, they're hard to find.
Also, just me personally, and this is, like I said, a personal opinion, I think people make too much of the interior pass rush when you're asking for these guys. That's great if you can do it, but to me, that's kind of like, I like the guys who every single snap, you got to assign 2 linemen to them, and they just gird up and let your linebackers go kill people. Those are very, very valuable. We need one now. That's what they're looking for in the portal. Tyleik Williams was a tremendous run stuffer. There are some people who think he's the best run stuffing one technique in this draft. So that's hard to replace, especially as we've talked about, even though Perez is 360, he's only 17, 18, or 19 years old. There's a difference when that's 22 years old with 4 years under Mick and you're just strong as an ox. You know what I'm saying? Especially, like I said, now, 3 years in the Ohio State program, you're paying major taxes. So that's one of the ways that gets you your old man strength a little bit faster once you see how much the government takes. I'm dead serious about this. Guys get serious when they start getting paid like this. So we will see about that.
And the way we run so many different packages, if you want pass rush, don't we have packages where the defensive ends kick the defensive tackles and then there's some linebackers at end and you bring that speed package and, for first and second down, when you don't want anyone getting up to your linebacker, and we just showed a clip of Sonny Styles running through the A-gap free to go get a 2-yard loss. You know why? Because the nose man still had the guard in center stuck to him. Whether he grabbed him and held him there and, did whatever, a running free linebacker is dangerous in college football. So guys like Jameer Perez make other guys, Ray Lewis loved Tony Siragusa, okay? This is your Tony Siragusa for Ray Lewis type of, combination or relationship.
Trivia. He loved 2 defensive tackles at the Ravens. It was Tony Siragusa and
Sam Adams, maybe?
Sam Adams. Your proclivity for a cold brew may have helped you there, but I digress. Bill, what else do we need to know about the weekend? Like I said, it was a star-studded cast. People have asked about the running backs. People have asked about guys in the portal. Let's stick to who was visiting. We'll get to the portal guys more later in the week. But let's talk about who you really want to discuss who was here this past weekend that we really need to know about. You're going to get some commitment watch chatter up here, I think.
Well, start with Caden Dixon-Wyatt, the wide receiver, back at Ohio State. He is made, and if you don't know, he's making these trips to Ohio State from California. So it's not like he's going to the next state over when he comes to Ohio State. So it's big. They have had Caden Dixon-Wyatt on campus now twice this spring. He is a huge Brian Hartline target. And right now, I think it's Ohio State and Oregon at the top. And I wouldn't bet against Ohio State on this one as things stand right now, especially if he decides sooner rather than later. And he hasn't said what he's going to do yet. Right now, he has his official visits scheduled, and 2 of them are to Ohio State and Oregon. Speaking of West Coast, well, let me get to Derek Cooper first. Derek Cooper, the running back from Florida, again at Ohio State this weekend. And everybody seems to be talking about Ohio State with Savion Hyder and Favor Aki. Well, don't sleep on Derek Cooper. He was with his mom and all, and his visit went extremely well. Ohio State is a very real player in that one, too. Back to the West Coast, Derek Coleman Brusa is a defensive end from the state of Washington that I think people aren't giving Ohio State quite enough credit for being a factor in his recruitment. I'm not saying that I would have him going to Ohio State at this point, but I think Ohio State is a factor. An interesting defensive lineman, PJ Pierre Dean. I know Ohio State is in his final three because he has said so. Ohio State, Georgia, South Carolina for his final three. He's an offensive lineman that's converted to the defensive line. Just an interesting guy that Ohio State is a real player in that battle. Nasir McCoy, a safety out of Georgia, and he's out of a good program, Buford High School. Ohio State, he told me, is absolutely going to be an official visit for him. He is going to put out his official visit schedule, figure it out and put out that schedule after he finishes the rest of his visits this spring here, he told me. And he told me that Ohio State absolutely will be one of them. I think those are generally the big guys. Favor Aki was back on campus again. At one point, I thought Favor Aki was close to committing to USC. In fact, that seemed like he was. Now, it may be an Ohio State-Miami battle at the top for Favor Aki. I still give Ohio State the edge, but Miami is certainly making a push there, too.
Grandpa Buck wants to know, Bill, how are we looking with Sincere Johnson? Speaking of Glenville, I think Sincere was actually in Alabama this weekend.
Yeah, he was not at Ohio State this weekend, and I still like Ohio State there. Again, it's really hard to bet against Ohio State when you look at Glenville guys that Ohio State really wants, and Sincere Johnson is a Glenville guy that Ohio State really wants. James Laurinaitis doing a great job recruiting him. He is very impressed. Sincere is very impressed with James Laurinaitis. I still like Ohio State's chances in that one.
Bill, there's a lot of chatter on here about Jackson Cantwell. He was not here this weekend, but he has announced his commitment date. Ohio State's on there. I don't sense a lot of optimism among the fans. Are you going to check them or join them?
There's not a tremendous amount of optimism on my part either. I certainly would take the field against Ohio State at this point. Let me put it that way.
Makes sense. All right, let's get a couple more questions in here, and then we will boogie on out. And like I said, we are all over the portal.
Well, Dan, let me mention one other thing.
Let you go.
As a little tease, there's a kid out there that a lot of people are not giving Ohio State enough credit for being a big factor in. And I'm going to have an article on him later today on our site, but just kind of a little tease that check our site a little later today for a kid that I think Ohio State is a real factor for that they really would like to get.
All right, Bill, last question. Give me the latest on Felix Ojo, and I hope he's not the guy you're writing about later this afternoon.
He is not the guy I'm writing about later this afternoon. But again, Felix Ojo had a really good visit to Ohio State, the Thursday-Friday visit. Went to Florida right after that for their spring game, and I'm thinking, am I going to see Florida pop up on his official visit schedule now that he's been there? Hadn't popped up yet. Doesn't mean he won't schedule him because you get unlimited official visits now. But his official visit schedule is Ole Miss, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, or Oklahoma, I should say. Oklahoma. Pretty good group there. And again, my feeling right now is with him, Ohio State, Texas will be tough to get him out of Texas, but Ohio State has a realistic shot. He is a left tackle that Ohio State would love to bring into the program.
Keep it locked into Bucknuts. Like Bill said, he'll have some juicy recruiting content for you later today. We will get up Mark's spring game video look later today. Lots of good stuff going on. And we do know Ohio State is after a defensive tackle, at least in the portal, and we'll be following that ardently. I think you're going to see some names go in there in the next few days that may wet the whistle, as it were. All right. Appreciate you guys stopping by. We'll be back. Have a good one, Nutters.